Oh, that's such an interesting use of H tags that I didn't even think of. I love that. And I'm not even going to try to attempt to say it. I think I'm the one that coined it because I can't pronounce anything. I'm like, sorry, product marketing. I made up a new name for it. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Helene Johnson. I am part of the Responsive Academy team, and I'm very excited to be joined today where we spotlight how real teams are using Responsive to transform the way that they work. I'm talking with Lynda English from Open Up Resources. She's done some incredible work building proposal responses from the ground up, and we're going to dig into her journey. What's changed, what's working, and what advice she has for other teams. So let's get started. Lynda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Lynda English. I am the Senior Director of Research and Proposals at Open Up Resources. I have been in this role since 2019, and we basically built out the proposals team starting in 2019. So it was a new team, and we were excited to use Responsive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have had the pleasure of connecting with Lynda in so many different ways, namely on some of our webinar series. So I'm so excited to be here with you today. But you mentioned that you've really built your response process from the ground up. What did that look like when you first got started in 2019? And how has it evolved since you've grown with Responsive?
So when I first started this role, we had salespeople who were answering proposals as they came in when they had time. And we knew we needed a dedicated person, and that's when I applied for the position. When we first began answering proposals in earnest, we just had all of our content in different Google Docs in the Google Drive. It was very cumbersome, hard to find. We had to remember what we said in each proposal to go find that past response that we knew we wanted to use again, to have that same language in each new response. So it took us a lot of time. At one point in our journey, I had a sabbatical with our company, and I was off for 4 weeks, and my team discovered that all of our knowledge lived in my brain. So we knew then that we needed to have more of a content repository, and we started looking for a platform from there.
Yeah, that sounds so similar to so many different clients that I've talked to where it was all over the place. So that's so great from now. And building that process from the ground up, before Responsive came into the picture, you mentioned that you had everything all over the place. What were your sales teams facing specifically that you realized that you needed to have a new solution?
So when it came to answering proposals, my team generally, when we needed to answer response, they would come to me and I would say, look in this old response, or look in this Dropbox document. I was the bottleneck in getting the information out. And then our sales team didn't have any access to look up answers to questions. They don't have time to go read through full proposals. So there was not that support for them. So when our sales team specifically had questions that came from customers, it would always have to come through my team or to our subject matter experts. And it took a lot of time for us to answer each specific question. With Responsive, we have been able to train our salespeople to use the content library, and they are able to go in and use the content library to get all of the questions to the answers the customers are asking. They are able to fill out questionnaires. And we also have Responsive AI, and they are able to just ask Responsive to draft them an email in a response to a customer. And it has taken so much lift off of our subject matter experts because they're using the content in the Responsive library that our subject matter experts have already approved. So we know that they are giving good quality answers.
Yeah, that sounds like you've really enabled that self-service model that so many proposal managers ideally would like to use. But if you're going from a bunch of Google Docs and you're not sure if the information is valid, then you can't be sure of what your sales reps are sharing. So
Right.
Sounds like you're in a much better process now. On that note, I do want to take a step back and talk a little bit more about your role specifically and your day-to-day life now that your team is fully using responsive.
So when we first started the proposals process and we were building it out, when we would receive a notification for an RFP, we would sit and burn it down, and we would do an analysis. And then we would have weekly meetings with our subject matter experts. We are in the education industry, so we would have like our chief academic officers. We would have people there from operations. We would have people from finance. We would have people from sales. And this was a weekly meeting. So it took about a half hour to an hour out of their week just for the meeting, it's not counting the time where they would review the RFP itself. Once we got responsive, we were able to use a feature within responsive. We've added this. It's a newer feature responsive called intake surveys. So now we have actually been able to cancel a meeting. And for those of you who work in virtual companies, you know how important that is to try to get some of those meetings off of our plate. So we've been able to eliminate a meeting because of using the responsive intake surveys, where we send the survey. So we send specific questions to our subject matter experts. So they are only looking at parts of an RFP that relate to them. And they are able to answer those questions right away with yes or no, we can do this. And we are able to move forward. It makes our decision process a lot faster. We're not waiting for our meeting, because sometimes we'll receive an RFP like a day after our previous meeting. We're not waiting 6 days to get a yes or no. We can start faster. And our subject matter experts love it because they are able to review on their time frame. And they, like I said, we have gotten rid of one meeting off the calendar. And then from there, we are able to load the rubrics or questions, the criteria, whatever you might call it, that comes in through the RFP. We're able to load that into the responsive platform. We pre-populate answers that have been given to us by our subject matter experts, and then we send it over to them for review. It actually goes so much faster than it used to. We have gone from a RFP response taking us 2 weeks to taking us 2 to 3 days. They go in and they just say that it's approved, that it's been reviewed, and we are able to export answers, get our responses done and shipped off. Our subject matter experts love it. The proposals team loves it just because of how efficient that we have been. We've actually become so efficient. Last year, we had 14% of RFPs that we said no to was because the proposals team was at capacity. And this year we have said no to 0 because we were at capacity. And that is 100% due to responsive, making our lives much more efficient.
Wow, that's awesome. I know that you had said previously that your team responds to about 75 RFPs annually per year. That's amazing.
And we're a team of 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's like no small feat at all. 75 a year is crazy. And the fact that you're saying no to a lot, how are you able with responsive to manage scale at that quantity level?
Responsive has made it so we no longer have to hunt for each answer. It is in the library. In responsive, there is a recommendations tool. So we are able to take the question, look for recommended answers, and edit them. From that point forward, we aren't going through where before we might have to go search through 18 documents to try to find the one response that we're looking for. In responsive, it takes us a matter of 2 minutes, where before it would take us 2 hours.
And I know you mentioned that you're using responsive AI. Are you using that to craft those responses that you're using from the library? Or is it mostly just to filter and find those responses to start?
For responses with in RFPs and our projects, as they're called in responsive, we use AI infrequently because our library is pretty robust. So we already have a lot of those, but you can use it to draft a first draft of a response. And we do use that for some of those criteria that will say, do you agree to provide this service? And we could just put first draft and it's going to say, we agree to provide this, and it adds a little bit more. So that makes it easier. We really use AI a lot in our in the content library for our sales team, as they're going in, they could be on a call with a customer who could ask a question, and they use the AI tool in the content library to get answers for the customers at that time.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like at Responsive, our sales team loves using Ask and the content library with Responsive AI because they need answers so quickly sometimes, and they're not always the most patient. So they want the answer right then. So ideally, if you had a content library that it sounds like you do, that's super up to date, they're probably very happy with you.
Yeah, it makes their life so much easier. And data metric for that, last year, the sales team sent over 54 questionnaire documents for my team to find answers for. And this year we have done 3. So they are able to do those questionnaires themselves. It has really taken the workload off of several departments at our company.
Yeah, that's great. I feel this word that we used to use all the time at Responsive, GTM is the acronym, GBT, give back time. And I feel like you're enabling that core value just all the time for your whole team based on how much time they're saving. But you talked about Responsive AI as a tool that you use. You love the content library. You love the intake survey. Are there other tools in Responsive that you'd like to highlight or you love using?
So some of the things that we love using is, one of them is the templates that are in the Responsive program with your projects. When you're able to put your own template in and export the information so that it's formatted correctly. That is also, you talked about giving back time. That's also a huge time saver. When you are copying content from one document to another, to another, to another, many times you end up with 4 different formats, some fonts this color, some this color. But because of how we have it set up in Responsive, it's all exported in the direct format, in the direct font that we need it to be. So there's a lot less formatting to be done when we do that final product for the customers. So that's another thing that we really appreciate.
Yeah, formatting is something that I wish sometimes issuing teams would also take note of, because I remember when I used to work with clients directly and they'd send me a monster RFP or DDQ, and I'd be like, who put this together? It looks like Frankenstein. One page has one font, the other one has another. The formatting within the proposal industry, I know we've had multiple coffee chats and topics on it because it is definitely a beast at times.
And I will say one other feature that we really like in Responsive is the reporting. There is actually a report that I use frequently, and it is content search terms, where we can see what folks on our teams are searching for. And how I use that is, so say teams are just looking for a specific word, I will go through the content library and I'll ask them, what were you searching for? Because maybe they couldn't find it. And then we know that we need to add more content on that topic. We also use that to see if there's a certain term that's being looked up through from multiple salespeople, that shows us that there's a shift in the sales environment, that school districts might be looking for something specific, and we can change from there.
Yeah, I love using that content search terms report. I feel for organizing and cleaning up your content library, it's so invaluable for that reason. But that actually reminded me, do you want to talk about the summer of Responsive and how that was your whole content cleanup and how important it was for your whole team?
So Summer of Responsive is actually starting the day after Memorial Day this year, and we're really excited for it. One of our main learnings from, we started using Responsive in January of 2024, and one of our main learnings was that we should not have loaded everything into our content library, but we were so excited that we went through all of our best responses that we sent to customers, and we loaded up everything into Responsive. And what that ended up doing for us was we ended up with a lot of duplicates. For our summer of responsive, we are going through our content library and clearing out our duplicates. And we just made it this week. It's called the golden response tag. So we have a tag so we can know, like, this has been reviewed and this is clear to use. And I'm just making sure that the content that our links are good. Our merge tags, we love merge tags in responsive. Making sure everything is formatted properly. It just really cleaning the content library.
I love that idea of the golden tag. Please tell me, are you color coding it so it sticks out?
It's
Oh, yeah. I wish more people took advantage of the color coding. Maybe I'm just such a nerd, but I love the way it looks sometimes in our demo instance, at least. That's such a great tip.
We are very color coded and we use categories. We are an education company, so we have English language arts products, we have math products. And with our tags, anything that relates to English language arts is a shade of red, and anything that's affiliated with math is a shade of blue. And it just helps our sales team be able to immediately see if this content is going with the right subject matter.
So in addition to utilizing tagging in the different subject matter or subject areas within education, are there other organizational features that you're taking advantage of or you plan to keep it maintained over time?
Thank you for bringing that up. I will say one of the smartest things that we did when we started using responsive was before we put anything into the platform, we really mapped out what we wanted it to look like. We mapped out our categories, and then under our categories, we mapped out our tags. When we were first thinking about responsive, we were wondering if the tag system would work for us because we were so used to everything being in a file. When you use most products online, you have this in a file and that in a file. And it actually has worked so much better than we ever would have thought. When we had things in Google Documents, everybody had their own copy of every document. It would be the same document would be in multiple files, but you never knew which one was the most up to date. And so in responsive with the tags, we don't have to have multiple copies of the same document, even if the same document relates to multiple subjects. We are able to just use one and just have a tag, and we are able to assign an owner and a reviewer to each piece of content, and we can see when the last time it was reviewed and when the next review is. So we do use review date to sort and to look at content in the library. We look to see if it has been reviewed. We use categories. Your categories you can keep people from seeing different categories. So that's been great because our math people do not care about what the English language arts people are looking at. So that's been a great sorting. And then we use tags. And we also use the star system as a sorting tool within our company. So for us, if it's a 5-star response, that's just been a response to an RFP or a request from a state that's a very general question that they would ask of any provider. And if it's 4-star, it's a question it's about a very specific product. And that's actually helped our sales team as well. When we bring on new people, they can go into responsive and they can filter down by a tag and then to 4 stars and see what are customers asking about this specific product. And it's a way to help them learn more.
Yeah, I think that's a great use of the star system, as well as I believe you were saying categories, but the tool of collections, right? To be able to subject into those categories and segment your users. I've even seen clients use catalogs to segment if they're working on a library and they're not ready yet. I know for us, I've made anything that's not released yet, that's in early access, but I know will soon be available. I have a category for that for product updates. So there's so many different ways that you can use it, but I think that totally makes sense, that process.
We have one that's called not reviewed, and no one else in the company can see it. And
Yeah. No, that's great. Now, I have a question on that, though. You said you mentioned when new sales team members come on, do you have kind of an internal documentation for training? Do you host it in responsive? How does that process work for all your different SMEs?
so when we have new people come on, and this is right now, we were having quick 30-minute meetings to show them how to use responsive, but this is actually part of the summer of responsive. We are making several short 1-minute videos to show them how things are specifically set up for my company and how we use the platform. We are also linking out to items that are found in the responsive help channels and in things. So because you have so much information in there already that we don't have to create everything.
Yeah, I love that idea of a hybrid approach of taking advantage of the resources that Responsive has, but also making sure it's customizable to your organization and the process that you set up. But I'm super excited for the summer of Responsive. You'll have to keep me updated what ends up happening. I think a lot of, strategic response teams getting more visibility through using a platform like Responsive because it gives you the confidence, also the reporting that you mentioned, to get that buy-in from other teams. How has Responsive changed how you feel about the final product that you've been submitting?
So Responsive has really made us feel so much more confident with what we are submitting. In the past, we always, you backwards plan out your time when you get a proposal from that due date. According to all of the rules, you are to leave at least 10% of time for review. And almost always we would run out of time for the final review. So there's been a lot of times where we would send out RFPs where they had been reviewed along the way, but there just wasn't time for that final review. Actually, that problem has been eliminated with Responsive because of all the answers being in Responsive, because of the subject matter experts just being able to go in and say, this is reviewed, this is reviewed, this is reviewed. And, if the answer is not correct, it's so much easier for them to find the correct response and to make those adjustments than it was when they had to search through all of those old Google Docs.
No, I totally understand that. And I'm sure it's easier for them to all work together, right? You're working with multiple different subject matter experts that are probably responsible for different products. You have the sales team, everyone works differently. So having a place that is saving everyone time is probably a better working experience for everyone on your team.
And I will say, we've been building out, like our company's been building out our teams. And now we are at the place where we need the sequential reviews, where one person will review the answers in a project and then another person will review the answers. And the subject matter experts are just so happy about that feature that they can see when somebody has reviewed it and then they're doing their final review. Just that feature alone has made things so much better.
Have you gotten a chance to take advantage of sequential reviews in your content library yet?
No, that's part of Summer of Responsive because we are so excited about when we received the notice that, that's a new development in Responsive. Like my team had a little celebration because that's been something that has been on our minds. Like, how are we going to handle those content library reviews? Because we have the people who need to review it, but then their boss needs to be the final reviewer. And we hadn't had that in the past. So that new development has just made us very happy. One thing that I really appreciate about Responsive is, every month you do the product release webinars and we can go on and see what you're doing. And you're always adding not just features to add features, but you're adding usable features. And it's just exciting to watch. Even like we've only been using the platform for 1.5 years now and seeing how much more that we have access to now as opposed to just 1.5 years ago. And I mean, one of the game changers that was released is the hierarchical tags, even though no one can say that. And we always say H tags. The hierarchical tags are just amazing for us because we have different versions of the same product, but some of the responses are the same. They don't change because it's really still under that same nest. And those have been game changing for us.
Oh, that's such an interesting use of H tags that I didn't even think of. I love that. And I'm not even going to try to attempt to say it. I think I'm the one that coined it because I can't pronounce anything. I'm like, sorry, product marketing. I made up a new name for it. But there's so many things that you said that are so impactful there. Taking it back all the way to the review process and how that was something that sequential reviews in the content library. What I really enjoy about responsive, and I think you can agree, is the product teams are really listening to our clients and real proposal managers, et cetera, strategic response teams and their day-to-day workflow and what we can put into place to impact it. So that's why I love doing the product updates and having people like you on, because I genuinely get excited for everyone. I'm like, yay, finally sequential reviews. I think I was just over the moon about it, but it's great to hear that you like it too.
I do. I love having a little part, even if it's something that we're not going to use. I always think, well, we're not using it at this time. We don't know that we might not need that.
Totally. And it's so funny. I always think about the response that for someone, that was the enhancement that they've been waiting their whole life for. And I wasn't even thinking it was that big of a deal.
You never know how someone is going to use it. Like you said, you hadn't even thought about that use case for the hierarchical tags. But yeah, as we update information, we have different versions, different things, and they are amazing. And I didn't even know I needed them.
Yeah, no, I'm going to steal that as a best practice now, see how it works. What other advice do you have for bid and proposal teams, specifically anyone who's brand new to responsive, if they're just starting now and they'd love to hear from you and the mistakes and things that you did that were great?
First of all, please know that we really tested out the program. Mimi was our salesperson at the time, and my team really dove in, and we tested for a week. Mimi would jump on, and also Amrat, who is on, I believe he is one of your product designers. They would jump on and answer all our questions. My first piece of advice is if you have a question, please know that throughout my 1.5 years of working with Responsive, I have always gotten an answer. If they don't have the answer right then, they will find it for you. And that has been one of the best things is the customer care. I would say if you decide to go with Responsive, make sure that you map out what you want your library to look at. And also don't rush to add every little piece of information because you will end up with duplicates. And follow my lead. Don't be afraid to try something new. Like we were really concerned about just changing our star system. They know that sounds really small, but it was been really embraced by our sales team. And one of the things too is if you are going to use your responsive library as a content repository for your sales team, make sure that you always point them back to it. We have really got our sales team trained, and so to speak, to go to responsive first. If they ask a question and the answer is in responsive, we give them the link to the answer in responsive. We don't just tell them the answer. We actually give them the link to that so they realize they can see what it looks like. They can ask questions, and that has helped a lot. My team is just rolling out this use of sections this summer. We've been using it for 1.5 years, and we haven't used the sections. That's where you can put in your cover letters and so on. And we are just now merging those in to use those this year. So don't feel like you have to do everything at once because there is a lot that responsive can do. I would say take bite-sized pieces to learn each piece well, and then add on another piece.
Awesome, Lynda. Is there anything else that you want to add? I just want to give you a shout out because I know that your team has been responsible for over $25 million in revenue since 2019. That is so amazing. And I hope you've gotten your flowers from everyone. That's a crazy number.
We're doing great. We are doing great. We're very excited. And we just, every day is a new day. We learn something new. And it's just exciting.
Yes. Well, I can't wait to hear how the summer responsive goes. And yeah, I want to see one of those emails one of those days. But it was so great to talk to you, Lynda. I hope you have a great summer responsive, and I'm sure I'll see you on a webinar soon.
Thank you.